So here I am, and I've done more stitches than I normally do for a sample cast on, but I'm going to divide them in half and show you different things to do with this cast on. First, what I'd like to show you is the lower edge, which I think is very attractive. It has a very nice braided look. The other thing I think is very attractive is this sort of spiral rotating colors, which again I think is very attractive. Now, this is a long tail cast on, so when we look at this, this is a knit stitch, and if we want to continue, when we turn around, we're going to purl these stitches. So that's what we're going to start doing. I'm going to take these over here. Let me take the yarn and put it in position and take the tails. Now, truthfully, I trim the tails because one of the things I will say that is hard about this cast on is you need more of your contrasting color than you do of your main color. And that is because you're doing 2 stitches in contrasting color for every 1 stitch in main color. And it's very hard to get both of them correct. And you must consider that when you're casting on. But since you automatically do, in the cast on edge, the crossover, so we only have a single stitch of the contrasting color here, our count is easy to do. You can just count the colors or count by 2s. So we're going to do our first stitch, and since this is the wrong side and we're doing ribbing, we're going to be doing this as a purl, the first stitch as a purl. And I have trouble keeping this in focus, I will admit, so I'm going to ask you to bear with me. And then the second stitch is going, the second yarn is going to come under, come to the front, and become a knit. And this is going to be our next stitch, which is going to be a purl, and then we're going to cross over this, drop that knit off, and do a knit stitch, come back to the yellow and do a purl, and this results in a 2-color corrugated ribbing. One of the things I like about this is you're not going to lose the stretch that you have incorporated into the cast on, and this makes it, I think, a lot easier. Okay, so we're going to try and do standard. So we're constantly just moving the yarns back and forth. Corrugated ribbing is always a bit of a pain in my estimation, but it's a very nice effect, and I think it's a very, very nice effect when it starts right from the cast on edge. It doesn't always, and one of the things that happens when it doesn't always is when you cast on a single color and then go to the corrugated ribbing in 2 colors, what happens sometimes is you have a change of gauge. Not so with this cast on. Now you'll notice, because I did not snug up those stitches as I worked them, there's a very loose and stretchy cast on, and that's something that I think is important. It's so easy to make a cast on too tight, and as I say, 2-color cast ons have twice the opportunity for the cast on edge to be too tight. So this is one thing you can do with this cast on, is this corrugated ribbing. I'm going to stop now and turn it so you can see it from this side, and you can see very nicely it makes a very nice corrugated edge. But there's something else you can do. I'm going to, at this point, drop the contrasting color and only continue to work with the main color. In this case now, I'm going to slip. Now, of course, I'm going to slip purl-wise, and because I'm purling, because this is the wrong side, I'm going to purl a stitch, I'm going to slip a stitch, I'm going to purl a stitch. Now, I can switch, as I just did, between a standard purl and a combo purl. I think that, you know, it's, to me, it's without a thought how I work my stitches. They will now slip, On the next row they'll be oriented differently. This will not bother me in the least, however I do them. So I'm doing a slip, the contrasting, and purl the main color. Slip, purl. So I'm looking for a stocking net on the right side, and this is row 1, the wrong side. So now we can turn and we can see the difference that the two things do. This is, well, a couple of things. First of all, it's shorter because we've slipped half the stitches, so we've changed the gauge. The second thing is, because of the ribbing, this part of the edge tends to leave us with this spirally stripe and not with the braid. Because we're going right into stocking knit, and this will be more evident in row 3, this one tends to be shorter, and it tends to have a roll, as stocking knit will do, and roll this edge towards the front. This cast on will not stop rolling. It is inherent to stockinette. So I'm going to do now row 2, and row 2 is just going to be a standard stockinette. Let's see. So we're going to wrap, and depending on how our stitch is mounted, we're going to either, this is one where we work a combo, so we work into the back. This is a slip, so we work into the front. Combo, work into the back, work into the front, work into the back, work into the front, work into the back. Pretty soon now I'll come to the point. Here we go. Here's one where I did a standard stitch. Some of them I did, not that one, I guess. And oh, here we go. And now I just work into the front. I just immediately analyze how I work the stitch and decide how I'm going to put my needle in. So, you know, you can see that I'm just doing a standard stockinette. I'm not doing any twisted stitches. I'm viewing this through the viewfinder of my camera, trying to keep it in focus for you. Okay, and now we come back to where we dropped the yarn, and we're definitely not quite. So we're going to do 1, 2, and this is going to be our transition. So now if we wanted to continue with our corrugated ribbing, let's not have it whole, so let's twist it once, just as in Tarsha style, and we only need to do that the once. And now we can just go into, get some yarn. It's twisted. All right, there we go. And that it will twist with a little bit in row 2. So now we're going to knit and then bring the yarn forward and purl, and then come back to a knit and yarn forward and purl. And by the end of row 2, you're going to see the difference that this cast on makes depending on how you treat it. And that's why I said it's borderline and edging, because this cast on does look different depending on whether you're knitting, you're purling, you're ribbing, or doing stockinette. And a standard cast on is just a cast on. This cast on really is geared to creating an edge. And creating an edge is, to me, slightly different than a cast on. Now, you could do this cast on and then go on to something else. You always have your options. I'm just showing you the two that I find significant. Okay, so here we go. So I'm going to pull these stitches out of the way. So by row 2 completed, we very clearly have a corrugated 2-color ribbing. I think you could do other things with this. I think you could do seed stitch. I think there'd be a lot of things to explore. But because it is a ribbing, you do get this spiral edge. I think is very attractive. The first half, though, that we did as a stockinette, your cast on tends to roll up. And you can do something to stop the roll, but you tend to see the whole braided border because of this. You could certainly block it so that it laid flat, and then it has another look for the edging, the way the spiral comes into the yellow, and it just creates a very interesting effect, I think, having all the stitches as knits as opposed to knits and purls. So when you think about a cast-on is a cast-on. This cast-on starts as this cast-on, but I think it becomes more of an edging because it changes the look of the cast-on depending on what you do in row 1 and in this case row 2. I hope you like this effect. I hope you consider it for some of the projects you're working on to create an interesting effect for your knitting.